Welcome to America This Week. I'm Matt Taibbi, and apparently this is the last episode of this show, as I've just discovered, because my longtime partner does not want to take part in the new iteration of the site. So I'm going to have to write an explanation, not so much about the back and forth, but just to clarify the coming schedule. We were going to have no more live broadcast on Monday and just have a taped show that would come out on Friday. But that is not going to take place anymore. So that leaves us with the new revamped version of Racket 2.0. Now, I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about what that is and why I've made changes and why I essentially fired myself. I'm investing a considerable amount of money to hire new people, and their remit is just to go out and develop stories on a variety of topics. There will be no interference from me about anything. As long as the things check out, they will go on the site. I first started following the new editor, Emily Kopp, when she was working at the U.S. Right to Know. She was instrumental in doing the reporting that connected the virus to the, at the time, little known gain of function research story. And, it was one of those things where the combination of old school FOIA techniques and a kind of dogged attitude about one story allowed a small, relatively underfunded organization to penetrate the consciousness of a massively covered story and, get some people to notice to the point where it's now more or less conventional wisdom that there is a connection between the gain of function program and the pandemic. At minimum, there was a broad scale program that that was largely whose details were largely unknown to the public. That was sort of wildly out of step with what most ordinary people expect and understand to be done with their tax dollars. And the revelations about this story I thought were really important. At this time, some people who I know in the business who are a little bit older said, keep an eye out on this person. She's dogged, she's good, et cetera, et cetera. Then she left USRTK. She moved to the Daily Caller. She has since become she's become controversial in those circles. The gist of the news stories that have people upset is that she's asking the question, and her sources are pushing her to ask the question, why is the gain of function research program not dead if the administration was elected to do that? So, as I mentioned in my article today, I have some friends who are going to be pissed off about this decision, and I knew I was going to hear from them right away. I did. I set my watch by the first one. But I didn't expect this to take place. So so that's the situation. So there is no more America This Week, but that's okay because we're going to be replacing. The site is actually going to have a considerably larger amount of material and content than it ever did before. The vast majority of those things are going to be reported. I had started an internal rule about 2 or 3 months ago that the op-ed heavy nature of a lot of Substacks was becoming a negative, and I decided that I wasn't going to put out anything that didn't have at least one phone call behind it. And that evolved into a thought that we needed to sponsor more actual reporting at this site. There was a time when I was younger when I could do that myself, that when I could handle reported features and write op-eds and juggle some other things and assign stories and edit those and do all that stuff myself. But I can't do that anymore. I'm getting too old to do that. It takes me longer to write things, and the news cycle is getting tighter and faster. And so I thought the appropriate thing to do would be to invest some of the money. We've been generously supported here at Racket. We have very loyal readers. We've had a readership that's grown significantly and consistently over the time period since I moved to Substack full time, especially. At first, the original incarnation of what was then called, it didn't even have a name originally. Then we had TK News, which was sort of an industry joke because TK is the stenotype shorthand for we don't have a headline yet. So you would see something that said headline TK. So I hadn't thought of a name yet. We put TK News for a while. Then it was Racket, the name that we adopted right around the time that the Twitter file started. And the original conception of the site fit in kind of seamlessly with the logic of Substack at that time, which was that there were a lot of people who were deeply distressed with the mainstream press, were looking for strong narrative voices, and they were usually looking for a recognizable literary style, someone who could be someone who they could kind of develop a relationship with. There's an intimacy about Substack, so a one-person platform worked a little bit better. As time has gone on and things have evolved in the news cycle, not only have I seen flaws with that, and it's not Substack's fault. It's just that there are some issues with what happens to writers when they get into this cycle that become difficult. The audience expectations started to push people in the direction of became more of a competition about taking positions on things than it did about producing actual work. And even for somebody like me, who's like less inclined, who's more interested in just writing about stories, that became more of a focus. The problem being that actual reporting takes time, and Substack does not respond well when there's a blank space for a long time. You need to have content coming on a regular basis, and it became harder and harder for me to juggle that contradiction. And so I decided that the best thing to do would be to hire more reporters, let them do their thing, and create a bunch of stories that would be about anything, and perhaps in the process eliminate the misconception that I give a shit at all about the politics of any of this. Yeah, I took a considerable amount of criticism for not weighing in on the Israel-Palestine story, which was I thought was crazy in the beginning, because by the old standards of the business, it was actually considered ethical not to talk about things when you don't have a knowledge base about something. I was once on television, and due to an accident that took place between the producers of the show, the anchor asked me a question, a very specific question about Middle East politics, thinking that I was a different guest. I had come on to talk about economics, and I was completely flummoxed, and I reverted to some advice that had been given on, I think, on a site like fair.org, which had talked about the problem of people always having opinions about things on television, even when it's clear that they couldn't possibly know something about everything. So I just said, I don't know. And at the time, that was considered cool. There was also a general understanding of reporters that most of the time, people like me, we work on one thing at a time. I worked on finance and Wall Street almost exclusively for 10 years. It was either that or the policing issue. And for the most part, we stayed in our lanes. And if we had something to say, if there was a particular thing that happened in the news that I felt like weighing in on, well, being an op writer is okay. I mean, I think it has a function. One of my heroes was H.L. Mencken, who was a fantastic editorialist. Could find something interesting to say about everything. But Henry Louis Mencken was not a politician. His job was not to give a list of positions on every topic of the day. He was a curmudgeonly type of person who, when he didn't like a certain subject, just avoided it. And I always thought that was the honorable and decent way to go about things. I'm not bothering anybody. If they want to write about another subject, I'm not getting in their way. I'm not telling them what to write. I'm not challenging them, et cetera, et cetera. But there became this expectation. You've got to weigh in on this. You've got to weigh in on that. And I reached the point where I felt like there were only two ways to go. One is to either deal with that on its own, on its own logic, and actually try to do things like answer or come up with some kind of reported answer on every news issue that comes across your desk in the middle of the news cycle, and follow the manias on social media. And this is another thing, is that the news cycle developed into a series of moral manias over a period of time. And there were a lot of perils associated with taking an unpopular position on things that I thought were completely disproportional to the actual amount of effort that a person might put into making a comment about something. If a reporter only spends, a minute a year thinking about a certain issue, but that's the most important thing in the world to, 20 million people, then there's going to be this disconnect. And in order to try to get out of this loop, I decided that the best way to go about this would be to outright reject it. Create a space in Racket where I was going to hire more contributors, let them say and or write and report about whatever, and show that I'm not averse to publishing a good story about Israel or Gaza or any of a dozen other stories that I personally don't want to weigh in on, but that we're going to do it in the right way. We're going to do it in a considered way. We're going to do it in mostly a reported way. And I think almost overwhelmingly we're going to do it that way. And more to the point, we're going to reject the idea that media is about takes. Media is about having a political position. The media in America does not work if it is associated with a political point of view. The whole idea of the fourth estate in the United States is that the media may be obnoxious, but it has to be separate, right? It can't be part of a team. Even within a newsroom, the whole idea of every newsroom that I've ever been associated with, especially the ones that were good, and I've been in some very good newsrooms. One of the first jobs I had was packed full of people who, at a young, they were very young at the time, but they developed into very famous reporters. People like Carlotta Gall, Mark Champion. I'm trying to think of who else was in that room. Steve Leisman, who was in CNBC. I'm blanking now, but there were a whole bunch of other folks in that Moscow Times newsroom. We all had different opinions about things, and that was at one time fine. The whole idea was that the newspaper was a conglomerate of people who were working on their own thing, and they would produce their own stuff at their own pace. Well, that's no longer accepted. I saw as early as 2016 that things were trending in a different direction, and you can go back and look and see that I quoted a professor who talked about younger audiences and how they were repelled by the idea of media organizations as cheerleaders for political sides, and that this was going to be the downfall of the business. I pointed that out in the, you can find the piece that I'm talking about in the article I wrote today, which is called We Care If It's True, We Don't Care Why. I worried about this. I worried about this idea of the press losing its independence, because it didn't make sense institutionally. Once the media signs on with one side or another, it becomes an appendage. It loses all of its authority. There is no reason anymore for anybody to listen to the media, because if you're predictable, then there's no reason for anybody to worry about what you're going to say. The press has to be completely unpredictable. It has to be a pain in the ass. It has to be difficult. And it has to be willing to piss people off. And this is not a particular strength of mine. As most people know, I'm as a human being, I'm sort of a genial and affable sort of person. I don't like to confront people all that much. But I do like to do reporting, and reporting that does confront people. But I like to have it locked down and checked 6 ways from Sunday, and then we'll talk, right? And that's what I want to build here. I want to make this site into a place that, to use a hackneyed phrase from this from this generation, from this time period. I want to make this a safe space for reporters, and by that I mean, you know, as long as you're working on something that's interesting, newsworthy, and checks out, it's good. I'm not going to get in your way. There's not going to be any pressure for me to not support anybody. The people that we brought in all have histories of looking in various directions. Most of the institutions that are important in this country are powerful precisely because they're bipartisan in their implication, in their orientation, and in their power base. So when you go after big pharma, when you go after the news business, although the news business is now more or less completely fragmented, when you go after banks, when you go after central banks, when you do anything, if it's done correctly, it's going to annoy both sides. It's going to annoy people of all shapes and sizes, which used to be a respected thing. It no longer is, but it will be here. The people in this organization will have my respect if they just do an interesting story. And the stories that I've been pitched already, that are already in the can and on their way on this site, are, to me, already sound incredibly interesting. Some of them are political, some of them aren't, some of them are just process stories. But there will be space to do them here. And as discussed in my article today, we're going to have, everybody who works here is going to have a kind of dual assignment. People are going to have to do some quick hitter type stories in the mold of daily news reporters who are going to have to find some kind of angle that they can work on, knock out, and write in a single day in response to something that's breaking in the news. And then they'll be also working on stories that have longer time horizons at the same time. And those are going to land, you know, once every couple of weeks, but maybe once every 3 weeks, sometimes longer. But it's going to be mostly stories. There aren't going to be as many op-eds, and there's going to be a lot less. Well, apparently there's going to be no podcast, at least not for the time being. So that's the new conception of Racket. This is a place where you're going to see reported stories. I have a really cool one coming out this week that I had to go overseas to get. That involves a pretty famous person and some pretty incredible documents, and shines a lot of light on the sort of underbelly of false information and private intelligence and its role in politics, not just in America, but everywhere. And I'm working on that. It's nearly done. Should be coming out in the next couple of days. But we have other things coming in the can as well, and we've also assigned a series of stories to other contributors who aren't full-time staffers but are going to contribute to us regularly. So the absence of Walter Kern notwithstanding, we're actually not cutting down today. We're adding significantly. This is the opposite of the Washington Post story. This is me electing to spend a whole bunch of money on reporting. And, you know, we'll see how it turns out. The proof will be in the pudding. If these stories turn out to be good, then they'll be valuable. And anybody who's out there who has a pitch, is a whistleblower, has had a hard time getting published anywhere else with any kind of story, you should know that this is a place that we're going to take anything that's interesting, potentially impactful, and checks out. And I do not give a shit what direction it hits in. As long as it's an interesting story and it matters and it's newsworthy, I'll take it. So, or not, I'll take it. Emily Kopp will take it. She is the new editor-in-chief. Part of the idea behind putting Emily in charge and giving her editorial responsibilities is to free me up to do more of what I'm good at and less of what I'm not good at. So if anything, there'll be more of my writing on the site than before. This isn't the kind of thing where I'm stepping away to take more time off. I just think that this is a better way to structure things, and it's a response to what I think has been a long developing negative phenomenon in media, which is this transformation or the reduction of journalism from the process of telling stories that are all individual and have their own character. Each one has its own character, to a constantly evolving take on things. I'm done with takes. As I put it in the piece today, I hate takes so much, I'm willing to spend $1 million never to give one again. So this is the end of takes. We'll find something to I guess recreate some kind of visual presence on the site. I'm sorry that Walter feels the way he does. He's a great friend of mine. I've really enjoyed talking to him. I've really enjoyed talking to him with all of you. But people feel how they feel, and that's something that has to be respected. But anyway, as sad as this is on a personal level, I think this is a good day for the site. It's a good day for Racket. And all I can say is keep checking in here. We'll find something to recreate and reconnect with audiences in the way that America This Week did. It's sad in the sense that I think we all had a lot of fun here. Walter was a unique partner for podcasting and as a co-host because he and I had the same sense of humor. We enjoyed the same things. We liked the same books for the most part. And all that's going to be sad to not do anymore. But life goes on, and this is the beginning of something, not the end of something. And, where one thing ends, there's opportunity for more. So, sorry, folks, about the show today. But hopefully we'll be able to announce something in the near future that can take the show's place. And farewell, Walter, and hasta la vista. I'm sorry you feel the way you do. Thanks everybody for hanging out, and stay tuned to Racket and watch for announcements, both from me and from our new editor-in-chief. And I'll talk to you soon. All right, thanks everybody. Take care.